Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live webinar, The Future of Professional Services and How to Prepare for It, brought to you by TSIA and sponsored by Kantata. My name is Vanessa Lucero, and I'll be your moderator for today. I would now like to introduce our presenters, Bo DiMuccio, Distinguished Vice President of Professional Services Research for TSIA, and Fortuné Alexander, Vice President of Product Marketing with Kantata. As with all of our TSIA webinars, we do have a lot of exciting content to cover in the next 45 minutes. So let's jump right in and get started. Fortuné, over to you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. We're thrilled to have you join us. Again, my name is Fortuné Alexander, VP of Product Marketing at Kantata. And if you're not familiar with Kantata, here's my 30-second elevator pitch. We're just like Waze provides drivers real-time navigation for the best way to get to their destination. Kantata gives PS leaders visibility and clarity from planning to delivery, providing preemptive insights, next best actions, and automating more of the work, all to optimize outcomes for your clients. And we don't just tell you how to get there. We help you see around corners, avoid the risk, and take action to optimize your revenue and your operations. So with that said, I am thrilled to be here today and joined by Bo DiMuccio. Bo, thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah. Bo, I'm super excited about your most recent report. So let's dive into it. First of all, I love the title, The Future of Professional Services. I mean, that is a weighty title in and of itself, but the report is really packed full of some pragmatic recommendations about setting your professional services transformation strategy, integrating AI into your operations, transitioning to new business models like professional services as a service, and then reorienting your organization around customer success. So awesome topics, awesome pragmatic recommendations in here. And again, love the strong start. I'm from Texas, big ZZ Top fan. So reminds me of a ZZ Top song hidden right out of the gate. I'm going to quote you for a minute. It says, fundamental challenge for PS leaders is to successfully balance the operational necessity of keeping the lights on with the critical task of fundamentally transforming their operating, financial, and delivery models. In other words, PS leaders are challenged with building the plane while flying it. Bo, but my first question is this. That is a very strong and real statement. And I think the market and the clients we talk to believe that. But for you, for the clients that you advise in the tech space, how much sleep are the tech leaders you talk to losing over this challenge? Do you think they're taking it seriously enough? And do these leaders think they have more time to solve it? Maybe the folks on this call today think they have more time to solve it than they actually do. So I know I packed a couple of questions into one. Yeah. I'll let you unpack that.
Love the questions. How much sleep are leaders losing over this? It's basically an existential challenge, right? And they certainly should be losing sleep. We're bracing for just a massive disruption. What I think is interesting, though, is there's almost a bifurcation here. And the truth is that all of this pressure to transform doesn't land equally. In some sectors and some industries, it's landing very fast and very hard and very heavy. In others, it maybe isn't. And there are some, I talk about this distinction between PS 1.0 and PS 2.0, where both our companies are rooted very strongly in this PS 1.0 realm of project services and a one-time fee and time and materials and those kinds of things. And truthfully, I'm working with a lot of organizations that are still very much in that realm. They're very much in that PS 1.0 realm. And then there are others that are just really fully embracing transformation, probably not because they want to, but because it's out of necessity. So there is this sort of uneven development. So some leaders aren't losing probably much sleep over it. I think they should be, because PS 1.0 has a timestamp on it, and it's not going to last much longer in any context. The ones that are really focused on transformation are taking it very seriously and putting a lot of cycles into it, investing in it. Are they taking it seriously enough? It's really sort of the same kind of bifurcation there. Some aren't taking it nearly seriously enough. Some are really just sort of having art projects and sandboxes and kicking tires, and others are moving mountains to try to transform. How much time do folks have to do this? I think the data is suggesting probably a mixed picture here. Just to take one example, and I know we're going to talk about this more, but just to take one example, there's super high interest in transitioning from project time-based, one-time fee, deliverable-based services to more subscription-based services. But when you really open up the hood and look at the engine, there's not a lot of movement there. And a lot of organizations are putting a lot of emphasis on this. We see some movement, and I have some examples we can talk about later. But really, the most common answer to the question, Fortuné, of how much of your revenue today is coming from subscription professional services, by far the most common answer is 0. So what I'm saying here is that this is revealing a sort of a gap, if you will, between two halves of this equation, and also a big gap, I would say, between, you could call it, intent and execution. Organizations, wherever they are on this continuum of transformation, are still leaning heavily on many well understood PS 1.0 principles. And a lot of the capabilities that you have to succeed in a transforming context of professional services are the same capabilities you needed 5 or 10 years ago. But I want to answer your last question here. Do they have sufficient plans for this metamorphosis? And I would say the short answer is, generally speaking, no. Generally speaking, strategy is very this quarter, this half, this year focused. Why? Because of that dynamic you already mentioned. We're flying the plane, it's in the air. We got to keep it afloat, but we're also in this situation where we have to switch out the engine, change the pilots, right? Change the cockpit crew, change the way the seats are structured. You're changing everything, but you're trying to keep the plane in the air. So there's this understandable and incredibly strong drive to meet current targets, to remain relevant, to continue to contribute to company and customer value. So where's that innovation? Where are those cycles going to come from? Where's the budget going to come from? So I would say the short answer is no. And I think that PS leaders need to really get off the dime here and start to very specifically, intentionally, and deliberately begin to plan for this metamorphosis, for this transformation.
Yeah, I think, if I heard it and is summing it up as, you've got to start building that transformation plan and strategy now if you haven't, built one yet. And it's really interesting when you start thinking about the drivers. We all know AI is important. We all know AI is, fundamentally changing how business works, how work gets done. That's clear. I think where we start to get murky and where we have a lot of clients asking questions is, how do I get there? So this whole notion of you need a plan, but then, you also have to have a way to get there. But before we dive in, I'm going to stay on that topic. One of the things I find interesting, and you had a stat in your report that jumped out at me, PS orgs that we know out there have a healthy book of business working on implementing AI-powered solutions for their clients. But your research indicates that the PS leaders themselves within their own functions are not using AI and automation in their own practices, even to the extent of other functions like sales and marketing. So why do you think that is, Bo?
I think it relates to what we've already talked about. There's some different flavors to it. So the specific, I'm glad you pointed that out. So we're doing, you can imagine, we have this large sample of tech companies all across the technology industry, large, medium, small hardware, software, pure plays, SaaS, born in the cloud, not born in the cloud. So we have a very large sample. So we get a pretty good sense of what's real out there. And we've been asking them every quarter for the last couple of years, how mature is your PS organization from an AI perspective? What's the maturity? How would you rate the maturity of your adoption and implementation of AI solutions, AI technologies, AI capabilities? And as you said, only 3% of the leaders, based on our most recent pulse on this, are rating themselves as high maturity. What's that mean? That they have gone to that level of including AI capabilities into their very workflows, into their very processes, into the way that they deliver services. Maybe they're even taking AI solutions out to the marketplace. So they're checking all those boxes in a mature manner, but that's only 3%. What are the rest of them doing? They are experimenting, they're piloting, they're kicking the tires. They're focused on the least risky things that you can do, which would be to focus on internal process optimization, probably. More risky, more exposure to risk comes when you begin to monkey with the way that you deliver and interact with customers. There's more of that happening, but not nearly as much as the piloting and experimenting and testing that we're doing with purely internal process optimization. Why? So your question, getting back to the core question, is why is this? Well, I'm interested in your thoughts, but I would say there are several, because you have a unique vantage point on this as well, given your business and all the wide swath of customers that you're working with. But I'm seeing a few things that seems to be reasons for this lag. I think it largely comes down to the absence of a truly comprehensive best practice strategy. We ask organizations all the time, and we look at their strategy, just a basic strategy. Do you have a strategy for your PS business? And a shockingly high proportion of PS organizations really don't have a thought through, documented, fully fleshed out strategy. And that's always a problem, but it's a bigger problem when you have all this upheaval happening and when you've got to be so forward looking and anticipating the changes coming about. So that's the fundamental problem. And so with that, there's a lack of strategic AI integration. If the company has a very thoughtful and thought through and really smart AI strategy, there's a chance that the PS team is going to have one too, but not if it's not mature from a strategy perspective. I think one of the primary reasons for that is that, this PS 1.0, this sort of old school professional services that we've grown up in, it really, that scenario, that whole thought process doesn't really focus on integrated AI-powered service delivery. It's more of a static operating model, right? And so in PS 2.0, you've got to very strategically integrate all this stuff into the very business model, governance, ethical implications, ensuring AI initiatives are fully aligned with and advancing the overarching professional services and company strategy. Well, if you don't have a strategy, what's the chance that you're going to have a strategic plan around AI? Zero. I think that's part of the problem. These are related, by the way. They're not standalone. We also know from our surveying, Fortuné, that organizations generally don't have dedicated budgets for this stuff. Where's the budget come from? Sometimes nowhere. There isn't any budget. It's people doing stuff in their spare time. That's a big obstacle. If you don't have budget space in the budget to focus on innovation, the innovation either isn't going to happen or it's just going to happen in pockets and it's not going to be coordinated. There's this problem of it's going to come back over and over again. We're going to talk about this in various flavors, but balancing current operations with transformation. Look, if that was simple or easy to do, everyone would do it. Yeah. But it's not simple and it's not easy. And we're at this inflection point where we have these colliding worlds between inertia and change. And there's an intensifying challenge to balance current operations because of the transformation the industry is going through. AI is causing upheaval in core revenue. There's just change happening everywhere. And so now the PS team, ironically, is probably even under more pressure to deliver revenue and maybe margin.
What's
so
interesting,
I would say those things are key.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the dynamic you just highlighted, because everyone is aware that AI is being used to some extent in work processes and in workflows. So I think we're also going to see pricing pressures from the client to say, like, hey, I know it doesn't take you as many man hours as it used to take you to do this project. You need to drop your price. So there's a lot of implications of how do you price your projects? And, if more of the work is going to be done by AI agents with humans in the loop, of course, there is a pricing change to that project. So, there's tons of dynamics here. I think it's interesting when you think about the maturity of AI use in professional services. There's kind of this curve of what I would call the crawl stage, which is people are using copilots and assistants and, ChatGPT, whatnot, to do just very basic internal work, maybe to give them a head start, maybe to summarize a report. But that is, that will only take you so far. And I think this is where people like us, professional service automation vendors come into play, because then you are talking about embedding AI directly into a platform that you use to run your business, from your operations to your financial planning to your billing. And with that domain specific expertise embedded into the platform, that's where you're going to see a lot of gains in efficiency and predictions in the system, being able to help you build, the best team for the next project based on what that project scope is. So there's a huge role to play. And part of the reason I'm here today talking with you is for the platform ecosystem to have that AI embedded in this domain specific solution. So I'm really, really excited about it. I think it is, the topics you address in the report, there are 5 areas, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's not long, but it's really good. New business models, which we've just been talking about. You've got to have a transformation strategy, which we've been talking about. Integrating AI into your operations. All these are meaty, but in terms of degree of difficulty, I think some of these, one of which we've been talking about, are more difficult than others because there's no roadmap. Everyone is more or less in a state of trying to figure this out. And so everyone is trying to experiment and learn from their vendors that they use in their tech stacks. And, there's this big phase of experimentation going on. So if we talk about this double diamond, if you will, environment where the degree of difficulty is pretty high because you don't have frameworks and playbooks and models you're having to go. How can we talk to our peers about ways of building that strategy with that murky, not clear frameworks and roadmaps that have played out yet? What advice do you give this audience for building that plan with kind of some of those unknowns?
Wow, what a great question. I appreciate that. I also wanted to just comment briefly on what you said before, because I'm really delighted to hear you talk about how central the technology and platforms are to all of this. The PS leaders are what's common to every PS organization that's bigger than a mom and pop shop: a system of record, a way of tracking time, a way of managing projects, project accounting, resource management. Everyone has some sort of system or group of systems. And so if those systems have AI capabilities built into them, it's that much more efficient and that much easier for the PS teams to deploy that stuff and deploy it in a scalable, right, extensible way. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that. I think you're spot on.
Yeah, we even see, like, if you look at usage of the platform, by the consultants versus resource managers, obviously usage is different based on their job and their function. But this whole notion of, if you're just going to put time tracking into the system, that's, like you said, a system of record. Whereas the way we are thinking about this platform is, it is a system of recommendation, it is a system of guidance, and it is also a system of doing more of the actual work. So the workflows in the system, It has all of the past project data in the system, so it can benchmark and do all kinds of recommendation on best fit. So it's super exciting how we're moving from a system of record to this, what I almost say, system of revenue optimization, helping you price correctly, helping you staff correctly, and automating some of those tasks that humans are doing today that they're not going to be doing in 3 to 5 years.
So listen up, folks. If you're in that 50% to 60% of organizations that are sort of still just kind of trying to get out of the starting blocks, or maybe hit some kind of escape or launch or escape velocity, adopt a tool like this one, right? That's a jump start to a quick start, if you will, to having overnight almost, if that's an exaggeration, but overnight having pretty advanced AI capabilities built into essentially everything that you're doing. All right. So the double diamond of so some of these things are hard, right? In fact, a lot of them are. I think that let's talk about kind of a transformation strategy first, right? How should leaders define and pursue a transformation strategy? And I think that some of this, again, I'm interested in what you think about this, but some of it's not net new, right? I think you need to anchor in a vision for the business. Define what you want PS to achieve, to become. Is it going to be a growth engine, a scale enabler, a product success enabler? This sets the guardrails, I would say, for your transformation priorities. It always has. That's a fundamental capability that any kind of strategic planning process needs to have, but it's really even more important now. I think another thing that is useful, that was useful 10 years ago and is still useful now, is to use a maturity-based roadmap. Benchmark your current state across core domains, focus on those things that are forward-looking, and focus on those things that help you really execute both PS 1.0 and PS 2.0, generate a heat map, visualize the gaps. I mean, some of this is just basically strategic planning 101. But the stakes are higher because the change is happening faster. So you could maybe 10 or 15 years ago have gotten away with having 10 initiatives running at a time. I think you got to pick 2 or 3 priority areas and drive change over a much shorter period of time. It's more agile than waterfall. I would say organize around transformation themes rather than a long list of initiatives. Anchor your transformation strategy in cross-cutting themes like customer value engineering or digital delivery at scale or converged services operating models, and how PS can be a part of that, a fuel for it, an enabler of it. Recurring revenue readiness. These things are going to be commonplace in PS 2.0, not ever even kind of heard of in PS 1.0. And then, what's so rewarding about working with the PS teams and being in the chair and having been at Deloitte Consulting and having sort of a long career in this, what you learn, I think you'll probably agree, Fortuné, is that the PS team can really be a strategy execution engine. Who knows the customers and the technology and the business value better than the PS team? Nobody. So PS can be that strategy execution engine. And frankly, it ought to be somebody's day job. But what you already mentioned, that customers and the street and investors and PE firms, they all have these very high expectations about your ability to squeeze cost out of the model. What's cost? It's people. So if you're doing riffs all the time, then it's going to be tough to make transformation somebody's day job, but frankly, it needs to be. So looking at those core programs, core KPIs, but then look outside of PS and draw lessons from maybe customer success and managed services and RevOps. But PS can be that sync point, that strategy execution engine. And one last thing I'd say that connects to this other double diamond problem, but I'll pause just to make sure you don't want to go somewhere else with it.
Sure.
Is, find a quick win. A quick win, I think, could very well be exploring these new business models like professional services as a service. I think there are opportunities for quick wins there. We have use cases. We know what good looks like. We have templates. We know what the landmines are. We know what the best practices are. There are success stories. I think that if you're nowhere on PS as a service, you can get somewhere fast, and that might be a good way to also enhance the quality and impact of your transformation strategies, to have that built.
Yeah, Bo, just on that one, we as a platform provider have started to do this with our PS organization as well. We have success packages. Obviously, our platform is subscription as a service. And, we sell, flex credits for this very reason, to stay current, implement more of the platform, the latest feature sets, all that stuff that sometimes requires professional services help. So success packages is similar to a revenue subscription, but on the services side. So we're doing this ourselves. My question for you is, we've been talking about this for, a while now. Where do you think the actual, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, now you're really being left behind? Like, where are we seeing the tipping point on, professional services as a service, if you will, for the broader industry?
Wow. I love that question. So let's address that by throwing some data out there right at first, because that's part of our reason for being, is to anchor these conversations in actual data. So we've been taking the pulse on this for years. We have questions in our core benchmark study. We've done other studies. There's lots of content on the TSIA portal having to do with moving to a subscription model for professional services. But what are the facts? The facts are that we're still today in a mostly project-based world. Still today, probably 85 or 90% of professional services revenues are still coming from one-time fee SOW projects. 10 to 15% of revenue is coming from something that's more contractual or subscription-based or renewable, if you will. Now, I will tell you that 10 or 15% is pulled up by some heavy adopters, from some very high adopters. We have some organizations that are pretty aggressively moving in this direction. So the most common answer around this is 3 to 5% of revenue today coming from subscription style professional services. So if you're at 3 to 5%, I got good news for you. You're right along with kind of where the industry is. So I guess that's good news to some extent. If you're less than that, you're behind the power curve. If you're more than that, should you get super excited about that? I don't know. What's the reason for it? I think it goes back to a lot of the things we already talked about. We're very much in a keep the lights on kind of a mode. The plane's flying. We can't let it crash. Right? And we know how to do projects. Your tools grew up helping organizations to manage projects and resource projects. We know how to do that. It's predictable. It's to some extent de-risks revenue. There's all kinds of reasons for it, but the customers increasingly are demanding continuous engagement, flexible consumption. The street and investors, boards and leadership teams want to move away from one-time fee to something more predictable and recurring. So there's lots of pressure to do this. And so what are some of the best practices to do this? And I think we have to get good at some things we're probably not that good at if you're stuck in a PS 1.0 realm. One, you have to be extremely sharp and clear and crisp on customer outcomes. Mm-hmm. That's not our history as an industry. Our history as an industry is, here's the technology. We're going to get you up and running. You're going to get some value out of it, we think, but we're not sure. So that's probably something you could have said for almost every technology 10 years ago. And as we've moved to more of a converged customer success context, that answer for the company hasn't been good enough. And now it's not good enough for professional services either. So we have to get better at customer outcomes. What ongoing outcomes do customers want? from the technology, from the services. I would say these models succeed when they deliver value continuously, not just at project endpoints. So interview your customers, segment their needs. Many are going to still want fixed scope project work, but the ones that are ready for outcome or subscription services, right, focus on those. Test the edges first. I would say you don't have to redesign your business overnight. What are you best at? What's most highly productized? What have you done 10,000 times and you can repeat it? It's very predictable. Package that up into a recurring structure. Maybe it's service assurance. Maybe it's quarterly planning. Maybe it's continuous analytics enablement, right? Prototype where you know you can execute and drive those into a subscription model. And then you have to, I think, also recognize that the metrics, the operations, the resourcing, delivery methodologies, these are all pretty radically different from project services. So that's another good reason to start with what you know best. So with what you know you can execute, and then put those into a subscription. And then you got to involve operations, product engineering, finance, sales. You got to involve all these players early on and prove the case, get quick wins. If you can't get quick wins, I would say this form of new business model will die on the vine.
Yeah.
So those are just some high points I would suggest would be things to think about when you're exploring professional services as a service.
This is great, Bo. I have some questions, but I'm curious. I haven't looked in the chat yet to see, Vanessa, if we have some questions, perhaps on this topic or other topics, but the professional services as a service is one that I imagine would generate some questions.
We do. So we actually have Sarah here saying, what about your SaaS fees are very expensive in market? The client wants continuous engagement included as well as white glove level of service as part of the high cost service. How would you approach looking at subscription models in that scenario?
You want to try that one first, Fortuné?
Yeah, I'm wrapping my head around it. It was a long one. So if you want to take the crack, Bo, I'm just reading the question in the chat right now.
What's valuable to the customer is what you can successfully charge for. If the customer is being asked to pay for your complexity, that's probably not a winning play. The reason why continuous engagement can be valuable is that it helps customers get more value out of your products and technologies. You keep them engaged. They get to consume flexibly. And so you mentioned I guess Sarah mentioned the premium support. Premium support is a pretty classic type of subscription offer. The problem with a lot of premium support offers is that they can come out of support, they can come out of customer success, they can come out of professional services, they can be a managed service. So I would advise that this is one of those reasons why there needs to be a centralized offer function that can really coordinate between these different functions. To the extent you still have stovepipes, there's always going to be a risk that you're going to engineer kind of similar offers that maybe are priced differently. But we have seen so what's a premium support offer in a PS realm? Technical account manager. Technical account manager, resident engineer, technical resident architect. These are the sorts of offers that have been successful for years. Is it true subscription? Probably not. If you look at our framework for revenue streams for professional services, we have project revenue, we have contractual revenue, we have subscription revenue. So it probably falls more into contractual because it's not a true subscription in the sense that you have simple standard work products built into a flexible consumption model. The customers consume those as they see fit. There's usually points or credits or tokens associated with those things, and they can draw against them. So those are just some top of mind thoughts. But I think the fundamental point is that you have to really, I think I just said this already, what is the customer outcome? What are the outcomes and values that the customers want? And then your job is to design offers and services that achieve those outcomes. And if you do that successfully, those can be very successful businesses, very highly marginable, margin positive, and all those kinds of things. But I'm actually not looking at the question for today, so I don't know if you saw anything different there that you wanted to comment on.
No, I think you nailed that question, but it sparked another question in my mind that I'd like to kind of build on top of your answer. You talked at several points about this convergence of professional services, support functions, product functions, client success. I think you're saying more than, hey, let's like have integrated workflows and collaboration. You're actually talking about fundamental structural change to the org design, how these orgs are set up. So I'm just curious from your perspective and research, if you've seen, companies who are collapsing these functions, and if you could maybe just give us a few examples of what that looks like.
You bet. So TSIA does quite a bit of research on organizational structure. As you can imagine, we do an annual deep dive study on these things. And I will say a couple of things. One is that stovepipes aren't going away yet. Silos are still there. We're going to bust them, and PS 2.0 and technology 2.0, you're going to see those silos busted down for sure. But right now, there's still quite a bit of silo in technology organizational models. That doesn't mean that you're not seeing a lot of aggressive organizational change. So you're seeing, very commonly, you're seeing unified customer success organizations where companies have really truly fully integrated professional services, customer success, support, managed education, whatever, under a single, if you will, post-sales leader, often a CCO or a CXO or chief experience officer, whatever it might be, in which case they would have shared KPIs around things like adoption, retention, expansion. And it's the motivation to do that is obvious. Customers don't want to be troubled with your complexity and your clunky handovers. They want seamless behavior from you, and they want clear accountability for outcomes. So if there's one throat to choke on this, then there should be. The interesting thing is there's persistence of these organizational models because there are unique delivery modalities, there are unique skills still, even unique metrics and systems. So we're in kind of this hybrid blended world of siloed and converged organizational models. But if you don't have a unified customer success organization and you're a SaaS company, then that'd be pretty strange. That'd be pretty off the edge of the map. If there's one function, if the organizations aren't unified or integrated, then the portfolio function probably is. So a lot of leading organizations now have shared ownership between product and PS and support and success for offers. And I think that's the smartest thing to do, as long as each of these different big use cases are still being served, because we still have unique implementation use cases, unique optimization use cases. So unify that function. Lots of your peers are doing it, but make sure that you're providing support to the silos that do exist. My sort of closing mantra on this is there ought to be just exactly the right amount of silo, but not one iota more.
Love that. Interesting, and it does segue kind of, I think, into one more area that we haven't touched on as we go through this transformation and see the shifts in strategy and the packaging and the pricing and the organizational convergence. It's natural, and we've already seen it, and you've done research on it, that the metrics that we all talked about in PS 1.0 are clearly changing, if not already changed. Can we speak just a minute on kind of what you're seeing in your research around, the metrics that are, mattering the most as we go forward?
Mm-hmm. What a great question. So there's something going on right now on LinkedIn. that's pretty interesting. It goes right to this question. I want to very briefly touch on it because I know we're running out of time. But our marketing team grabbed the most common topic that's hitting our AI inquiry right now in professional services, and guess what it is? Utilization. Has Kantata had ever had any use cases or data or tools or systems around utilization? Do you still have that? Of course.
Of course.
So my comment, they asked me to comment on it to try to, kind of make the conversation start to grow and maybe go viral. My comment was, look, this is changing. Eventually, we're not going to care about utilization anymore, but we still do. And there's a debate going on right inside of that thread about, no, we don't care anymore. It's totally off the edge of the map, and others are coming in and saying, oh, this is very important for us. So the fundamental point I want to make is that these PS 1.0 metrics aren't gone yet. PS looks a lot more like it did 5 years ago than it's going to look 5 years from now. So the metrics that are rising as our 1.0 metrics are receding are things like customer lifetime value, time to value, resource forecast accuracy, utilization risk, if not utilization risk. What about margin by customer segment or customer outcome or offer type? This is not something that we tend to be very good at. I think all of these customer health signals that you're getting, there's a lot of opportunity to measure those things and also to leverage tools like yours. Instead of waiting for the customer success team to flag issues. If we've got a great tool like yours, then an agent is flagging those things for us. Missed milestones, late entry, rework, all those things are going into highly sophisticated customer health scoring models that are getting pushed to us by agents instead of us having to do fishing expeditions and have our clunky PS 1.0 tools flag things for us. Predictive analytics, delivery risk score, on-time confidence index. These are the sorts of things that are starting to appear probably, and folks in the audience are probably wondering how soon? Fast, soon.
Yeah, it's soon. Interesting. We've also built into our platform something we call Pulse, which is sentiment analysis as the project is ongoing, but from two angles, not just from the client's perspective, but from the consultant's perspective as well. And you can triangulate that sentiment amongst the delivery team and the client and, very quickly understand where you have issues and problems. So you don't have to wait to the end of the project to find out, that things have gone off the rails. Look, I have greatly appreciated our conversation. We do have a few more questions, and I'd like to get to those before we run out of time. So why don't we round out our conversation? Before we get to the last questions, I do want to say, as Kantata and being here today with Bo, we also have a white paper on why change and why now. And I think, Bo, you have a very elegant, compelling report that, it lays out why change and why now, but the last piece is why Kantata, and that's in our white paper. And so we have a slide on the screen that we can share that I believe is up now with a QR code if you'd like to check out that white paper. So if you do want to hang around and listen to a few of Q&A, now is the time we're going to do that. So let's see if we've got some, Vanessa, that we want to go through.
Yeah, so we have Sean saying, should we build our own AI solutions for PS or use AI embedded in vendor platforms?
I have a very strong perspective on that, and Bo, I'm sure you do as well. I would say that I alluded to the crawl, walk, run maturity model of AI and AI tools. I think if you use the generalized tools that are available to most of us, that will only get you so far. You really want to use domain-specific tools that have domain-specific, small and medium language models tied to a broader language model where you can get hyper-relevant decisioning and recommendations and predictions on very specific data sets and either within a specific client or within a specific industry. So there is my short answer without going too long here is You certainly should do some experimenting on your own, but when it comes to getting the most out of the AI tool set, you'll want to use and look for platforms and tools in this space that serves this PS sector, like Kantata, that has embedded native AI in the platform. That's going to get you a lot further than trying to build it your own.
I agree. Look, it's not either or, it's both and. Every one of your people is experimenting with stuff right now. And some of them are coming up with pretty cool ways to make their work more efficient. It's not about that. It's about, if your vendors aren't providing you with cutting edge AI capabilities right inside of the tool, you better find another vendor, I would say. So, but it's going to be both of those things, but I completely agree, Fortuné, with what you just said.
Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time today. We do have quite a few questions, though, as Fortuné mentioned, that weren't able to be answered here live. But don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. And we do have all of your contact information to follow up. And with that, any closing remarks from you, Fortuné and Bo, before we end?
Go ahead, Bo.
Hey, I just want to thank you, Fortuné and Kantata, for partnering with us on this discussion. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate your recommendation that folks go and check out the report, and this report here is a fantastic one as well. So I would say not either or, both and. Go check them both out, and we will get to those questions. A ton of questions have come in, so we are going to respond to each and every one of those if we haven't done so already.
Great. Thank you, Bo. It's a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Okay, so now just a friendly reminder to everyone, you will receive the on-demand version of today's webinar in your email inbox in the next few days. And just thank you again so much to Bo and Fortuné for delivering an outstanding session. And thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for the future of professional services and how to prepare for it. Brought to you by TSIA and sponsored by Kantata. We look forward to seeing you at our next TSIA webinar. Take care, everyone.